Welcome to the Comicstorian channel, where we dive deeper into some of your favorite pop culture universes, bringing you the storylines behind the comic books, the movies, and the video games, and we break them down into an audio drama. We bring you that lore so that you can enjoy it while carrying on with your busy day. Recently, we have started covering the storyline of Smallville Season 11. For those who don't know, Smallville Seasons 1 through 10 were on television, and they covered the story of Clark Kent as he learned what it meant to be a hero. When he finally donned the costume at the ending, the show ended. And, well, that was it. But they continued the storyline in the Smallville comic, where they weren't constrained by budgetary problems. In Volume 1, we discovered what the new status quo for Superman was. In Volume 2, we were introduced to Batman and Nightwing in this universe. And now we are in Volume 3, continuing the storyline of Smallville Season 11. If you want to help us out, please consider following us over at Twitter at Comicstorian, and make sure you give this video a like at the end and you give us a comment down below, such as "I want more Smallville," as it keeps us in the algorithm and we can keep bringing these to you. "Daddy, wait!" young Tess cries at the front steps as the limo carrying her father pulls away. "Daddy, I love you." She steps off of the front steps, running after the car in the rain. And the car stops, and a smiling Lex Luthor gets out. "We've got sisters, sis." He smiles at his young sister. The older Tess then appears by her younger self, a stab wound still in her stomach when Lex killed her. She grabs her younger self's hand, pulling her back into the large house. Lex follows, strolling through the long hallways that is his mind. I'd say my brain is a bit of a dump. He begins to run, chasing after the two girls. But he can't extract his sister from his mind until he learns everything that she knows. Tess slams the door behind them, locking Luthor away. He knows that he can piece much of his memories together from the media, but there is one thing that he still can't seem to learn. He doesn't quite know who is Superman. Tess turns as the memories flash before her eyes. Clark Kent and his history with Lex, something that she is hiding from him in the dark corridors of his mind. A voice blares down the hallway and Lex ceases his assault on the door. "Mr. Luthor to red door. Mr. Luthor to red door." He turns away, strolling back the way that he came. "Sit tight, Tess," he tells her as he reaches for the doorknob. "This conversation is far from over." Lex's eyes open to see a man shining a light into his eyes, and quickly he is unstrapped from the machine and questions Otis on why he was awakened. "Sorry, Mr. Luthor, there's a situation outside that Superman is trying his hardest to control." Down the street below, a young child calls to his mother for help as the garbage truck comes sailing towards him. But suddenly a red and blue blur plows into that truck, altering its course and saving the child. "Thanks, Superman!" the kid calls out as the mother pulls him away. The Man of Steel turns to the culprit and floats before him. "I think that's quite enough, Dr. Jones." Jones floats before him, his eyes pulsing with purple light and spheres whirling around him. "Call me Simon," he intones. "Okay, Simon, just calm down." "No, it's Simon with a silent P." From the destruction, Lex Luthor comes strolling down the street, trying to calm the villain down. But a peaceful solution doesn't seem to be working. "Peacefully went out the window when your drugs made my brain too big for my skull," the villain shouts, removing his hat, revealing the strange glows and holes in his scalp that pulse with purple glow and reveal his brain. While Lex doesn't remember the events, he promises that he'll be happy to help Simon find a cure. Superman moves in fast, pulling Lex away from Simon's anger outburst, which would have killed him. The Man of Steel drops Lex off on a nearby roof, letting him know that eventually, the evils of his past are most likely going to catch up with him. Lex sneers at Superman's concern. "If you need me, you know where to find me," he tells him before taking off to continue the fight. He comes barreling in hard, his fists connecting with the ground where Simon stood moments before. Simon dodges, slamming one of his spheres into Superman, able to dodge him by reading the synaptic firing within his mind to anticipate his movements. Suddenly, a blur comes out of nowhere, slamming Simon, moving faster than he could predict. Simon stumbles as the blows rain down upon him and he falls, blood dripping from his broken jaw, asking, "How did Superman get so fast?" "There's always been someone faster," Superman grins. Simon is knocked out, and in the blink of an eye, everyone on the scene is holding ice cream cones. "Little early for ice cream, isn't it?" Superman asks, turning to Bart Allen. "Need my calories, amigo?" Bart grins. "The speed thing is a killer." Meanwhile, over at LexCorp Tower, Lois Lane storms into Lex's office, beginning to question him about the failed experiments that led to Simon being created. In the shadows of his mind, Test watches the interaction as Lex coolly dodges Lois's questions. While Lex continues to answer, his hand slowly begins to pick up a pen and write on a post-it note. He continues to walk unaware of the post-it note on his desk, and finally, Lois stands to leave, taking the note with her. As she leaves the room, she turns back to Lex. "You might not remember your ghosts, but they sure as hell remember you," she tells him before leaving. Standing before the elevator, she looks down at the note in her hands, which has a single word on it: help. Elsewhere in the world, "You know, you used to be faster than this," Bart tells Clark, as the two of them race across the ocean, the waves kicking up in their wake. Clark explains that he got slower once his ability to fly kicked in. Bart just laughs and tells him, "So flying isn't that special. Put your money where your mouth is. Me flying, you running," Superman tells him as he leaps into the sky. "Loser buys lunch." And with a great boom, the Man of Steel is gone. Superman finally stops in Mumbai, where the kids swarm around him for an autograph. But he's stunned to see Bart already there playing a game of soccer. Later, the two are sitting on the park bench as Clark fills Bart in on everything that has happened to him since the last time they met. Finally, after a little brotherly bonding, Superman's watchtower comms buzz to interrupt them. "I know you boys are catching up, but there's a situation in Paris," Chloe tells them. "I'll give you a head start." Bart grins as he begins to stretch, and with a boom, Superman is gone. Suddenly, Bart hears a strange whisper calling out his name. He turns, but there is no one there. He ignores it, and with a crackle of energy, he takes off after Superman. At Stryker's Island, Lex Luthor stands outside the hyper-solitary cell of Simon. The villain screams at Lex, telling him to stay away from him. "How tight do they have that thing screwed on?" Lex asks, motioning to the strange helmet that is dampening Simon's powers. He motions to the guards to lower the power on the helmet, and he leans in. "You have to know that no matter what I did or didn't do to you in my old life, I don't remember any of it," Lex tells him. "Who was I, Simon? What was I?" Simon finally looks up, staring at Lex, and behind him, he sees Tess, with the stab wound still in her stomach. She looks at him, putting a finger to her lips, telling him to keep quiet. Simon leans forward, telling him to turn the helmet back on. He doesn't need his power to know what Lex is or was. "You were and always will be a monster, an animal." In Paris, Superman and Impulse have just arrived on the scene, and they quickly get updated on the situation. Suddenly, an explosion rips apart a wall of the Louvre, and a giant gorilla carrying a brain in a jar on its back comes storming out. "See us, Superman," the brain says through its voice box. "Monkey," Clark notes as the chimps begin to pour out of the windows. "You know, this almost never happens in Mexico," Bart says as the two heroes jump into battle. Superman picks one up, turning to Bart as he asks if it's okay to hit him. "Yes, we can hit them!" Bart yells as he suddenly punched through a wall. Superman moves in for the big gorilla, telling Bart to get the civilians to safety. Bart begins to move fast, the world seemingly slowing down to a standstill around him. As Bart pulls the people free of danger, Superman locks into battle with the ape, and while they fight, the brain explains that they are lovers who found each other despite the fact that they were experimented on. "I'm happy you found each other, but you need to stop this before anybody gets hurt," Superman tells them. The gorilla pulls out a machine gun and begins to fire into the crowd. Luckily, Bart has returned and begins to pull the bullets out of the air before anyone can even notice. More bullets are fired and the Speed Force crackles around Impulse as he pushes himself faster. He saves the people, but the energy won't stop building. And when he stops to catch his breath, he sees that he's pushing himself too fast. Suddenly, the world stops, and he hears the voice again. "Bart." It calls out to him. "Not now." He whispers, "Not again." He turns as the creature that seems to be made of an ever-shifting living shadow races towards him. "It is time." It hisses as it speeds forward, with the creature drawing nearer, its shadow and clawed hand reaching out for Bart. Meanwhile, Superman punches the gorilla away, finally using his super clap to knock the rest of the monkeys down. He floats over to Bart, who is panting with exhaustion. "It almost had me," he hisses. Later, Clark is carrying Bart across the ocean with him. "This isn't helping, you know," Bart tells him, but Clark won't let Bart start running so that the creature will attack him again. Bart tells him that the creature is always waiting for him every time he uses his super speed. "Why haven't you mentioned it before?" So Bart tells him that it wasn't always there. He didn't see it until Lex tortured him, and he had to run faster than he ever has before. That's when he saw it, watching him and waiting. This thing, this speed demon, the Black Racer. Now, even when I'm not running, I see it. I wanted to race you, Clark, because if you didn't see it, maybe you just are crazy, Clark finishes his sentence. He doesn't think that Bart's crazy, though. We need to find some way for you to come face to face with your boogeyman, he tells them as they arrive at Metropolis. Meanwhile, outside of Metropolis, Lois's phone begins to buzz. Hage from the Daily Planet informs her that she has a missed call from Simon at Stryker's Island. She notes it before heading into one of the abandoned LexCorp factories outside of the city. She can't get past the guard though, and inside, more of LexCorp employees are cleaning up meteor rocks. Suddenly, energy begins to crackle and one of the workers leans in to get a better look. Lois tries to push past the guard as the energy grows in strength and the man is suddenly tossed across the room. Lois rushes in, hoping to help the man as she yells for someone to call for an ambulance. But when she looks through the protective face mask, she sees the face of an old man staring back at her. But meanwhile, inside the dark reaches of Lex's mind, he and Tess look over the city. He turns to her, telling her that they have pinpointed the spot in his brain that her consciousness resides in. Tell me everything you know about Superman, or I give myself brain damage. She doesn't reply, staring at her brother wordlessly. And finally, Lex wakes up in his lab. He exits the room and he turns back to the technician. We do the procedure tomorrow morning. Later, as Lex is exiting the building, Otis is explaining what happened at the site to him. Lois, though, disguised as that guard, snags those key cards off of Otis's rings as they're walking out. She moves through the building and is finally blocked by a door that says level 3 on it. She flips through the cards, finding the one that Otis wrote level 3 on. They don't make henchmen like they used to. She smirks. She turns back to see a laser grid suddenly pop up behind her, and at that same moment her watchtower comms buzz. I can only assume that my wonderful cousin just saved my bacon, Lois asks Chloe. In all fairness, you weren't exactly being discreet. Chloe smiles on her end, but Lois disagrees. No one would recognize her in a baseball hat. Lois quickly fills her cousin in on the weird note and the strange energy that aged the man at Lex's site, hence why she is snooping around. Meanwhile, at Star Labs, Bart and Clark are hooked up to 2 treadmills. Clark's should speed him up to Bart's level and hopefully allow Clark to see the speed demon. I'm right there beside you, Bart, he tells him with the young man expressing no urge to run. Finally, the two of them take off, energy crackling around them. Bart continues to speed up, with Superman keeping pace. In his office, Dr. Hamilton's computers begin to overload, and a large explosion fills the room. From the floor, Clark struggles up, smoke billowing and shifting around him until he finally looks up and sees the Black Racer. Your speed is not pure, the creature hisses at him. The creature disappears, and Bart is there helping Superman to his feet. Did you see it? He asks quickly. Clark stares at the place where the creature stood before turning to his friend. I have to find some way to save you, Bart. I have to. That night, Superman sits atop the Daily Planet with Lois as they both have one of their secret rendezvous and eat Chinese takeout. He fills her in on the day's events and she lets him know about the strange energy storms. And it turns out that they've happened in other places as well. Keystone, Mexico, Miami, Metropolis. Clark is stunned as he realizes that these are all places that Bart Allen has been. As if the storms are following him. It's like they're chasing Bart, Lois says. Or hunting him, Clark says. Before they can end their evening, one of the interns opens the door and Clark is forced to fly away in a blur. The intern is stunned for a moment, but Lois's irritated voice shocks him out of it. They run the handwritten note that Lois had earlier, and it seems to match the Daily Planet's old owner, Tess Mercer. Back at Star Labs, Oliver Queen walks in with Emil Hamilton. Inside of the lab, Chloe has been hooked into a brain machine that Oliver previously stole from LexCorp, along with her deceased doppelganger. You know I hate all of this, right, Emil? Oliver tells him as he sees his wife hooked into the machine. Emil tells him that it should be safe and the transfer should allow Chloe to see the last memories that flashed before Earth 2 Chloe's mind. Right before she died. Elsewhere in the world, an elderly Mrs. Hunkle places a key in an old door. I'm sorry that we've woken you, Mrs. Hunkle, Superman tells her. Now, Superman, you know this is what I do, the old woman says with a smile. Inside the darkened foyer, the old woman pushes her eye against a scanner, opening a second doorway. The two heroes peer into the darkness. Okay, Stretch, you got me. What is this place? Bart asks as they enter the room, and Clark tells him that it is a monument to the heroes' past. The Justice Society of America. Bart doesn't understand how a history lesson is going to help them stop this creature, but Clark informs him that they're looking for someone. You weren't the first hero to break the sound barrier, Clark informs him. We had to find Jay Garrick. Back at Star Labs, Chloe has been hooked into the machine and the power has been turned out. Her eyes go wide as the memories of her doppelganger begin to flood her mind. She's walking through a street of destruction, and around her, fires rage and people are running in terror. Her name is called out and she turns to see Lois running down the street, yelling for her to get to her ship. From above, a beam of energy discharges and Lois is burned to nothing but ash. Chloe looks up to see a great ship looming overhead, and in the lab, Earth 1 Chloe screams. Meanwhile, over in Mumbai, a speedstorm crackles around the children playing soccer. In Paris, an officer is thrown away from his car. At the watchtower, Chloe glances at her computers as more speedstorms are beginning to pop up on the screen. Whatever this countdown on Bart is, it's speeding up and the death toll is rising. Oliver phones Clark, letting him know. Elsewhere, Clark and Bart stand outside the deserted home of Jay Garrick. "We really need this old hermit to help us?" Bart asks as the two heroes walk up. "Only one way to find out." And from the shadows of the front door, a set of boots can be seen. "Can I help you boys?" The voice questions them. "We're looking for Jay Garrick," Bart tells the old man. The chair creaks as the man stands up, a cane supporting it. "I'm Jay, or at least I used to be." More memories begin to flash through Chloe's mind back over at her adventure. The memories of Smallville high school graduation, of people running in fear through the halls, of Clark following them, his eyes burning bright with anger, heat vision arcing outward, burning those that have been affected by meteors. His arm lashes out, severing the head of another student. "It's like I told my father, why hunt you down when I can just wait for graduation?" He stalks through the school, but behind the desk, Chloe hides, waiting in fear. As she draws closer, the effects of the kryptonite that she has on her takes hold, and quickly Clark runs, leaving Chloe to cry. But in the real world, in our current timeline, in the home of Jay Garrick, the old man begins to make a cup of tea. "So you're the little pain in the ass that stole my identity a few years back," he notes to Bart. He knocks Bart's feet off the coffee table as he asks him, "Why me, boy? Why steal my identity? Never seen you before," he tells him, settling into his chair. But Bart can't tell him. He doesn't remember anything before he woke up with his abilities. There was a bright flash, and suddenly Bart was there with Jay's name in his head, along with Barry Allen and Wally West. "I haven't stopped running ever since." Superman tries to ask Jay for help. He knows that Carter Hall was thinking of restarting the Justice Society, that he wanted to help the younger generation of heroes. "What do you know about the Black Racer?" Bart finally blurts out, and for a second, the old man stares, stunned, at Bart. "When the feds rounded up the JSA, they broke my leg," he tells them. But Clark doesn't understand it should have healed by now. And anger fills Jay's voice as he throws his teacup into the sink, shattering it. "I don't want it fixed!" Bart understands. "Because you've seen it. You've seen the Black Racer!" Jay comes limping back into the room, some anger having left his voice. "Course I've seen it! Damned monster laughing at me, haunting me every time I broke into a run." He turns to Bart, a haunted look in his eyes. "Got to be out here and whispering my name, breathing down my neck even when I was sitting still. We ride the lightning, son. We sure as hell don't own it." Jay tells the two that the speed storms are the creature's way of calling out to Bart, telling him that it's time to collect. Jay stares out the window at the vast emptiness around them. He beat the creature when he stopped running. If Bart refuses to do that, there's only one answer. The old man turns back to the young heroes with sadness in his gruff voice. "The boys gotta die." And there you have it. Volume 3 is huge! So we actually had to break it into 3 parts to keep this on schedule as an every Sunday release kind of a thing. Now, if you guys want more Smallville, you need to keep this in the YouTube algorithm, and that means I need you to give this video a like, go down below, and say in the comments, "Benny, I want more Smallville! Screw YouTube!" You probably shouldn't say that, they might get mad at me. But you know what I'm saying, just do it. That'd be fine, it's whatever. I hope you guys are enjoying this, and the story of Impulse, Bart Allen, and the Black Racer will be continuing next week right here at the Comicstorian channel. If you want to chat with me about Smallville and your favorite moments in various TV shows and games and whatever, then follow us over at Comicstorian. We're trying to build up that presence, and would greatly appreciate your help with that. Either way, I'll see you next time right here, and thank you guys so much for your support right here at the YouTube channel. We can't do this without your support. You guys watching this and sharing these and writing in the comments is what makes this channel a thing. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.